Ladies and gentlemen, it's Race Week for the Indianapolis 6Rs, and in today's video, we're just going to be jumping in, doing a couple laps, and I'm going to be giving you a guide around the track. Now, firstly, we are going to be doing a quick flying lap, and then after, we'll jump in and analyze it. So this is actually quite a short track, but it's quite a tricky track. It's very easy to lose like a tenth in each corner on this track just by doing slightly different things. Now, I'm here in the LMP2 car. Last year I did drive the Indy 6R top split, finished P2, not quite able to take the win last year through this first sector. Quite a fun one going down the back straight, and now we're going into the SS section, difficult section we're going into, also very technical. Want to make sure you don't run deep in that corner because it's going to ruin the whole run through the whole S's. Use the grass there to help us a bit around. Cut as much as we can on that apex there. Use the exit curb and into the last couple of corners. Try indeed also quite tricky. Carry the minimum speed here. Even slightly revving the gears there, and here it's important to get a good exit onto the long start finish straight. Really tricky final sector. It's really easy to mess that part up. But let's see, that's a lap. Now let's go in and analyze it in the replay. I'm just going to be running the replay like this. You can see the inputs of my lap just below my webcam. So you can see into the first corner, I'm actually fuel saving just a little bit, both to save the fuel, but also to save the tires. Smoothly on the brakes, and I'm not peaking. This first corner is in first gear. And it's actually kind of important that you don't over push the braking into the first corner, because if you run deep here, you will have a bad line towards the next one. So maybe even under braking a little bit, just making sure you get to that apex and making sure that you also leave a bit of space for the next corner and a bit of room to get the car turned left. That's what we do here. Use the inside curb a bit. You see I'm smooth on the throttle, and I shift up to second gear on the exit of this corner as we sort of reach the rev limiter of the first gear. You can see we use a bit of grass here, which is fine. This is not an off track. We then need to pull it over to the left side. Use this entry curb here. Now it's important that you don't brake too much here. This will unsettle the car a bit too much. You can see I'm not using the brake so much. I'm kind of not over driving it into the corner because we also need to get a good exit out of the corner. So I'm braking very smoothly, not a lot, and I'm shifting down to second gear as we start turning in towards the corner. Hitting the apex, you kind of have to roll through this corner. You don't want to push the entry, but you also to make sure you get pretty early on throttle. You can see I am very early on throttle to make sure I get that good exit out of the corner. Traffic, it is possible to overtake GT3 cars here if you're a GTP or an LMP2, but you need to do it at this very early point, and then you need to take a tighter line here. Use the better acceleration than you have in the GT cars to get to the inside, but sending it down the inside here or later is going to lose you time. It's going to lose the GT3 car more time than probably just waiting around if you're sending it too late into there. Into the chicane, you can see I'm almost all the way to the left. You can be a little bit more to the right if you want to get a better run through the chicane. It is a flat out chicane, but on the outlaps you need to be a little bit careful of the cold tires. You can see I'm turning in early, and I'm actually using the grass a little bit on the inside here. You can see there's grass bits flying up. That's because one, it helps you have a little bit more track, and two, it also helps you just rotate the car just a little bit. But it's a full flat out corner on a car like this. Use the second curb here, and we are on to the back straight. Now, the most important thing here is that you don't really try to overstretch the tires too much. We're doing long stints, and that matters if you're a GT3, LMP2, or in a GTP. You're going to be wanting to try and save the tires a bit so you have that extra bit at the end of the stint. As we're going down the back straight, we're approaching a corner that's very similar to turn 1, but it's just going the other way, so it's a left-hander instead of a right-hander. You can see I lift off a little bit just when the curb here starts, and then I start braking at this asphalt bit that sort of comes in from the side. I'm smoothly on the brakes, going down through the gears, and I'm sort of waiting with first gear until right about when I turn in here. You can see the throttle blip from the gear change down to first gear, and that's to help get that rotation a little bit. You can even delay the change to first gear a bit more if that's what you want. But you can see I'm trying to get instantly on throttle basically when I'm at the apex. If you do hit these curbs a little bit, it doesn't really matter. The biggest difference is if you hit the curb too much, you'll be bouncing, and you could be bouncing into other cars in traffic or something like it, which you don't want. It is possible to dive down the inside of GT3 cars here, but to be honest, there minimum speed through this corner isn't much different from the prototypes. They maybe even have a little bit more traction on the exit, so you don't want to send it down the inside. But if you are maybe going down the inside of a GT3 here, and you manage to outbrake them just before, it definitely makes sense. And that's because throughout most of this S section that's coming up, probably like there's mainly one line, and it's going to be hard to try and overtake. Here you want to make sure you don't run deep into this corner, because it's going to mess up the whole run through the S section. You can see I'm sort of in the middle of the track at this point. I go back to full throttle, start turning in here, and I lift off just a little bit before I get onto the brakes. Now at this point, from cockpit view, I'm actually aiming a little bit for the grass. You can see I'm getting a bit on the grass here. That is also kind of to help rotate the car just a little bit, but also just making sure that we use as much track as possible. You do want to make sure that you don't get a slowdown penalty in these corners, because cutting just a bit too much will get you a slowdown penalty. But that's probably the main thing, is not running deep in the first corner, because it will then ruin your run through this whole second part. You can see I'm tapping the brakes slightly in between all of these corners, just to get the rotation a bit in as well. And this final one is actually one of the slow ones, but we can cut a lot of it. As long as we basically have the two wheels on this curb here, we should not be getting a slowdown penalty. So you can cut maybe a little bit more, maybe half a meter more than what I'm actually doing here. It's not going to make the biggest difference. Now we're on throttle here. You can see I'm on earliest throttle as possible. You can see I always start applying the throttle before we get to the apex. And when we're at the apex, I'm already around 75% on throttle. And then I just make sure that I make the exit of the corner as well, because you don't want to get onto the grass or the rear tires or something. That will lose you a lot of time. But then I get onto full throttle. Now we're through this little kink, which is nice to have a little break where you can overtake traffic. It's perfect here for prototypes to go around the outside of the GT3s in this corner. In this corner before, it is also possible to send it down the inside as a prototype, but you need to know what you're doing, and in most cases it's going to lose you time. It's going to lose the GT3 time as well. So if you are 2 or 3 car lengths behind at this point, you might as well just lift off, fuel save a bit, and then make sure you get that good exit, and that might even lose you less time, and it'll save you some fuel too. Going into the final sector, this one is hard to get consistently right. So you're basically approaching while you're turning the corner. And already here, while you're still turning, you need to spot the braking point. Because the braking point is out here at the 300 feet board. You see I start lifting off a little bit more and start braking just before it. And that's because we want to make sure they're also not running into this corner. This is basically a copy of T1, except in this one you can carry a bit more speed. It's actually good to carry minimum speed because the exit is slightly different. So even though the corner is the same, the exit is slightly different. So you can make sure to just carry that minimum speed in through the corner. You can see I'm way deeper than what I was in T1. In T1 I was way more to the right side of the track here. But that's because we have plenty of time before the final corner. So I actually am able to get on throttle here at the apex. I go a lot to the left, but I'm pointing the car right, or I'm using the throttle to rotate the car to the right. So you can see go basically around 2/3 of the way to the right side of the track, and then I start getting on the brakes in the middle of this tarmac part. In this corner, you really don't want to push the entry too much because you need a good exit, and if you're pushing the entry too much, carrying too much speed, you can have a little bit of a snap or just a bad exit, and that's really going to cost you a lot of time. So I start braking rather earlier than later in this corner, and sort of when I see, or sort of when I'm on the side of this piece of tarmac right here. Tapping the brakes down to first gear, and you can use more of this curb here. I slightly missed this apex because I was talking a lot, but you can get all the way to the inside here. Getting on the grass here is maybe not the best idea because that'll slightly upset the car as you get onto the throttle. But you can get all the way down in close to the grass. You can see already I'm 50% throttle at the apex, and then I'm just trying to get as quickly on throttle as possible to get as good of a final corner as possible. Now it's important here on the exit. You can see or on the entry to the corner, I actually go just a little bit to the left of the track to be able to line up this corner better and maybe take a slightly tighter line. On the outlaps, you might even have to lift in this corner because it is just on the edge of grip for all of the cars essentially. You can see that's also why we end up going so wide on the exit of this final corner. You want to get as good of an exit as possible. Now, on top of that, you do need to be aware that there can be different strategies both with fuel and tires. Last year, we actually managed to save a full stop by fuel saving throughout the race. If you want all the details on how we raced this last year and finished second place in top split, just missing out on that win, but still second place is a competitive result, I have a main channel video that you can go watch now, and maybe you can learn something about traffic details or anything like it, because it is essentially the same event as last year. Now, another small detail that you need to be aware of is that you should probably practice just a bit of rain for this race. There is a slight chance that it can be raining in qualifying and maybe just a little bit in the start of the race. So do make sure you practice some rain as well, because that could really spice up things if you don't know how to do it. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the subscribe button. I've been Marcus, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!